So on our lesson plan template, we ended off with a template that would have looked something like this. Okay, so we've got all of these sections. We've talked about outcomes. Somebody remind me where outcomes come from?
The curriculum.
Yeah, and where does curriculum come from?
The government.
Thank you, Kim. Yes, so outcomes come from the government in the form of curriculum or our programs of study, right? Which is our curriculum. Okay, objectives. Where do objectives come from?
They come from the teacher.
Yeah, thank you. They come from the teacher. And if you want to make a little note to yourself, one of the things that you can add in your, as a little side note on your objectives or in the box for your objectives is once you plan your choose or your activities, lots of times your objectives can come from those activities. Okay, Phoenix, go ahead there, bud. Are you there, Phoenix?
My bad. I didn't unmute my mic. When you kick a student from the call, are they able to rejoin back, or does it actually block them from the call?
Well, first of all, I didn't kick anybody out, but yeah, I mean, if I were to, I can remove you totally for sure, or any student. But yeah, if I kick you out, I think you can rejoin. I don't know. Let's see here. Remove Riley from the call. What?
Once you remove a student, you have to allow them access back into the classroom.
Yeah, if it does that, then thanks, Kim. It might, I think what it'll probably do is say Phoenix is trying to join the class, let him in or not. I think that's what happens, okay? So I'm saying I think that's what happens because I've never booted anybody out of class. So, but I think that's probably a good idea. Kim, have you had experience with that?
Yeah, I was an EA at Notre Dame last year, so we went online quite a bit. And of course, we had to boot quite a few students out of a Google Meet. And you have to reset the whole link in order for that student to join back in.
Oh, there you go. There you go, Phoenix. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
All right. And Kaylin, you're back, so that's good. All right. So we know that outcomes come from the government in the form of our programs of study / curriculum. Objectives come from the teacher. A good place to sort of come up with those, or that at least a little part of like plant the seed kind of, would be in your 2 activities in each of your segments. Okay. Assessment can take form of anything, right? We determined or we talked about that in Hunter's lesson plan methodology, that questioning goes on throughout the lesson, right from the time the kids walk through the door to the time that they leave you. You're always asking questions. So I've got that on my lesson plan, as you can see here, sort of just as a static item. It's going to be in every single lesson plan that I'm going to create. So using this template, why not just have it on there all the time? Because it's going to happen in every single lesson, right? So, and then we've got input. Somebody tell me what input is. Somebody other than Kim, although I do appreciate that your answers, Kim. No one else knows? Oh my goodness, Kim, I guess you're the only person who's gonna pass this class. Oh, what do we got here? Tristan, go for it.
Isn't it the terms that they need to know?
Yeah, terms, phrases, technical jargon, whatever it is, depending on the class that you're doing. It's all of those words, phrases, etc., that kids need to know to be successful in the lesson and understand what the heck you're talking about. Did somebody else put their hand up? So awesome answer, Tristan, thank you. No one else? Okay. All right, so there we go down on our lesson plan of rationale, and we just basically talked about this. And the question to ask yourself as you're formulating this is, why are you doing your lesson this way? And again, putting it in, just an easy to understand perspective when we talk about long division, right? Why are you teaching long division the way you're doing? In independent practice, do you have kids working in partners? If you do, why are you doing that? If you are doing a Kagan structure as a chew activity and it's quiz trade, why are you using quiz trade, right? So, and again, we want to explain that in a way that parents would be able to understand it, okay? Just in plain everyday language, no esoteric terms or phrases that just, bamboozle parents because they don't know what the heck you're talking about, right? And nor should they. They're not teachers and they don't know the ins and outs of lesson planning and how we put lesson plans together and why we do the things we do in lesson plans. So it's only fair to say we need them to explain it to us or we need to explain it to them in plain language, just like you'd expect from your doctor to explain it to. It's like, oh, okay, what is that? And I have those symptoms. You said I have this. What is that big fancy word or something like that? Or a lawyer, same idea, right? You expect that person to bring it down to the level of, like just the average person on the street kind of idea. Okay. All right. So next down, we got time and blooms. We're going to talk about blooms today. Your teaching points, of course, are really the meat and potatoes, the substance of your lesson. What are you going to say? What are you going to do? What are the kids going to say? Or what do you want them to say? What do you want them to do? It really can almost be literally like a script. And I remember my first lesson plans were, well, my lesson plans are usually always very detailed anyways. But yeah, so it's not uncommon to have, like when you get to third year and you're asked to do a lesson plan, probably anything less than a 5-page lesson plan is not going to get you a good mark because you haven't gone into the depth and the explanation that you need to go into those types of and to that at that level. And then fourth year, of course, not only are you doing even better or more superior lesson planning, but you're also doing unit plans and things like that, right? And unit plans very easily could contain 40 lesson plans. A unit plan could. So that's why it's really important for us to be good lesson planners. Okay, so we'll talk about blooms in a sec. Teaching points, meat, potatoes, time. Again, just a reminder to yourself. And I mean, you can do it any way you want. But my experience is if you come down to this box and go, okay, it's going to take me 7 minutes to do that anticipatory set. I've got a 4-minute and 32-second video. I'm going to yak at the kids for a minute or two. And by the time they do, get all that done, that's going to be about 7 minutes of my class. And again, we are going to set up times, or we've set up times for each grade level. So remember that, let me just bring that up. Did I put that? Where did I put that? Well, I know where it is. I can't remember. Did I share that with you guys? The times per grade? Did we talk about that? Okay, I'm just going to bring that back up here. Let me just, oh, wait, you know what? I gave you a, where the heck is that? Right here. I made this document after our class last day. I'll just make this bigger. And yes, it breaks my rule of no colored backgrounds, but I don't intend on printing this out because it's just a bunch of hyperlinks. So you can make it pretty as you want. Okay. I can't remember if I shared this with you in classroom or not. I'm going to just grab that link and throw it in the chat right now. Okay. A new monitor, so I got a lot of things going on here. So, but it's really helpful. So I'm just going to call this Brad's LP resources. It's kind of, I think, the most important ones that we need to know as teachers. And if you use this for nothing else than the future or future reference, that's totally fine too. Okay. So there's a link to this document. I will also throw it in Google Classroom just while it's on our minds so that it'll be here. Let me just bring that up here for a sec. There we go. All right, I'll just save that so it's also in the assignment. Okay, so in that lesson plan resources, first of all, we talked about last day these guidelines. Let me just make that page a little bit bigger too. There we go. Okay, so again, what we're looking at is, and we need one more document here. Just a sec. Where the heck is that? Right here. Times for instruction. So what we're going to go with is roughly these times. Okay, is if you're going to be when you create your own lesson, which you probably will be your homework for the weekend or till for next week. If you're K-2, I'll make that bigger too here. If you're K-2, you can plan a 20 to 30-minute lesson. So remember why that's important, because when we go back to our template, we need under all of these times. If this is going to be a 30-minute grade 2 science lesson, then these time numbers along the side shouldn't add up to any more than 30 minutes. Okay. And then of course, while we're down here and thinking about that, what is the minimum amount of segments that you're allowed to have or could have in a lesson plan? This form of lesson planning, at least.
You're allowed to have only one.
Right. The minimum amount, thank you, Kyler, and whoever said that, thank you. Yes, you could have, the minimum you would have was one segment, right? If you're doing direct teaching. And again, using this type of lesson plan for that type of thing. The minimum would be one segment. So you'd have an anticipatory set, a segment, and a close. If you are not using segment 2 or segment 3, just right click in there, and don't do this right now, I'll just show you. You can right click in there and just go delete table. And I'll just show you. If I go that way, it's gone. And if I go delete table again, it's gone. Okay. And then you just tighten that up and carry on with your lesson plan that way. All right. So we've got segment 1 is a minimum. What is then the maximum amount of segments you could have in a lesson? Maybe a little bit of a tricky kind of question. But what's the maximum? I've got 3 on my sample. Go ahead, Eric. Yeah.
There is no maximum, but you should make time a factor.
Right. Exactly. And there is no maximum, and the mitigating factor that would determine how many segments the maximum amount you would have, of course, would be the amount of time you have to teach a lesson. Right. So if you've got, 30 minutes for that grade 2 lesson, obviously you're going to have less segments. And if you got 90 minutes for that, high school science lesson, you could potentially have more segments as well. Or, anywhere between 1 and the time that you need. Maybe you only need 1 segment for that class, but it all just depends. Okay. But time determines how many segments you have. Okay. So our CHU activity, I can't remember if I said this last day, but did I mention what in my opinion, the maximum length of a CHU activity should be? Did I mention that? No? If I didn't, I'm going to mention it now. From my experience, 10 minutes 10 minutes should be about the maximum for a CHU activity. I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay. So if I were to ask you on a quiz, what is the maximum time a CHU activity should be on any lesson plan? Then the answer would be 10 minutes max. Okay, it could be 30 seconds or even less than that if that works, but 10 minutes max. And the reason I say that is because when you let them go, the longer you let your kids go, sometimes the harder it is to bring them back, right? So that's why I say about 10 minutes. And from my experience, like I said, the longer you let them be on their own, sometimes it's hard to transition back to you, right? Now, with that said, of course, these are all guidelines. There's nothing wrong with saying that, okay, I'm going to lecture or I'm going to direct teach for the first 20 minutes of my 80-minute class. And then for the next 50 minutes, kids are going to work, and then we'll wrap it up in the last few minutes. So, I mean, you could do that too. So again, it just depends on the nature of your lesson. And of course, we're talking with all these maximums and minimums, generalization, kind of a generalized idea of how that should go. Okay, so we've got those chunks, we've got the CHUs. In your chunk, somebody remind me, and I'm not going to get tricky with you on a quiz on this. So I would ask you, for an adult learner, right, or a late high school learner, what is the maximum amount of time you should spend on a chunk? So you've got a time limit, a maximum time limit, or a maximum number of new, that's a keyword, new items of information. Who remembers that?
Like 20 minutes for chunk or like 7 new items.
Absolutely. Okay, perfect. So again, those times for instruction then also, sorry, my bad. time guide. Those time limits or those guidelines increase or decrease depending on the age of your students. So we'll use this chart with the blue, whatever you want to call it, background, as our guideline for how long your chunks should be. And then, of course, we'll also use this guideline as your time for the whole entire lesson. Okay. And of course, I'm willing to work with those numbers. People in the past, students in the past have said, well, but I'm going to make this lesson for the school that I, graduated from. And at our school, our classes were 48 minutes. Is that okay? Yeah, totally, for sure. Right? If you want to work with a 43-minute class, fine with me. Doesn't matter. Okay. As long as in the end, it adds up to, in between these numbers that we've discussed, right? The minimums and maximums. Okay. All right. Let's go back to the template. There we go. So we got down to closure, and then we know that closure should do two things. Who knows what two things those should be? What are two things? Okay, Phoenix typed in the chat that review. Yes. So a review or a summary. And then Maya put in there to end the lesson, right? To bring the lesson to a definite ending. Perfect. Okay. Both of those are required to get a complete answer for that, for what is, closure kind of, or what does closure do? Okay. I have a chew in my closure, just, I don't know, to kind of follow our model up here. But usually, I usually don't have my chew. I usually just put my whole activity or what I'm going to do here in my closure, like a Kahoot game. So if closure is students will play Kahoot to review, the capitals and provinces of Canada, that's the whole deal right there. So that's my chew. That's my everything there. So you can leave chew in there, or if you want, you can remove it when you actually put your own closures in there. Okay. Next class, exactly that. What do you need to do for next class? What do the kids need to do or bring for next class, right? So maybe now we're working on those maps of Canada and you want them colored. So next class would be remind students to bring pencil crayons or whatever it is, right? Displays and materials. Again, let's stick with the maps of Canada thing. Well, we would need a 30 photocopies of a map of Canada. We would need some markers or whatever, and whatever other materials you might need. Okay, students might need their Chromebooks, might put Chromebooks in there, or laptops or whatever, that kind of stuff. And then teaching notes is just that, right? What was good, what was bad, what worked, what didn't work, what do you just kind of teachers always like remind yourself for next time. Okay, all right. So that's kind of all the areas of our general lesson plan template. Any questions about those different? Any parts of that? Any questions? Okay, so one question that came yesterday, I thought it was a really good question, was do we need to have, does our finished lesson plan template need to look like this, Brad? With all those words and all these little side notes and stuff in it. What I would recommend is this, I would recommend that you create one. And you feel free to use my words. I don't have the monopoly on these words. Feel free to use the words that I've added here. The links may or may not, be enough for you. But here's what you could possibly do, and I think it would be beneficial. Is that you create your template with the little remember notes and stuff there, so that you don't forget what you're supposed to do in each section. And then I would make a copy of this. One with all the little side notes on it, and then with a copy, I would take them all out of that copy and make it just look like that in the end. Because what's going to happen is then every time you use this, if you don't do that, every time that you use this template, you're going to have to delete all of this stuff out that I've got in here, so that you can actually type or write in there. So either way, if you handed in your lesson plan template with all of these annotations on here, I would give you full marks still. Okay, whether you keep them or don't, it's up to you. As an optional thing is you could make that copy, right? Again, make this, make it look like Brad's here with all these words and notes on the side, and then make a copy of this annotated lesson plan, and then take everything out. Anyways, it's up to you. But again, and the reason I say that, or I don't know, recommending that, is that you may not use this lesson plan now, let's say till third year, right? If you've taken Ed 250 already, and now you're taking this class, you're probably not going to write another lesson plan until you get into third year. So whatever year you're in your program, whether it be first or second, it's still going to be a stretch of time that you're not going to use it. In a year or two, you are not going to remember all these little tricks and tips and things that Brad recommended. Okay. And again, they're my recommendations based on this template and my experience using this template teaching people. Okay. Marissa, go ahead.
So the lesson plan that's due on like the 23rd, like this Thursday, it just has to be like empty, but like with like little like
Yeah.
of what
Well, here,
everything
I'll
is.
tell you what. I'll just show you mine again. So this, right, this is the, I'll just make it a little bit smaller so it's actually easier to see it, the whole thing, right? So if you looked at this lesson plan and you see it's just got the main headings in for each box, that's okay. If you handed a lesson plan in that looked like this, you would get, well, as long as I go through the checklist to make sure you've got all the stuff, you would have full marks. If you handed in a lesson plan that looked like this, with all the words and stuff on it, again, as long as you've got all the things in the checklist, I would give you full marks. So which version you hand in is totally up to you, because there's really only two things that you need to do for this overall assignment. One is creating a template that you know, you've made pretty and all that jazz, and then if we get time, we're going to start today working on a group lesson plan so we can do it together, so we see how we pull it together, and then you'll have your own to do. Okay. And then so really what you're going to end up handing in is a blank template and a completed lesson plan. Okay. So there's going to be two things. So it's up to you. All right. Does that make sense, Marissa?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. I just let me go to my notes here. Go ahead there, Alvaro.
Yes, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just
No
wanted to
problem.
ask you quickly if I want to do that horizontal line between assessment and input the way you have it on yours. Can you tell me how to do that line?
Are
It's
you
not on
talking about what?
between assessment and input on the template
here?
that you or your
Like this?
or the example. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, I didn't really actually do anything special there. So there's two ways that you could do this, this section here with these 4 boxes. So one way would be just to go insert table and just go 2 by 2. So then you've got them where they're together and they're touching. What I chose to do for my template is I just chose to go insert a table that is just, you know, side by side. And then I came down here and I went insert a table again so that I could put in my outcomes here, you know, my stuff there. So that's how you make that little space in between, is you actually have to create a brand new table.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. And either way, you know, with a space between or them touching, either way is fine by me. It's just a personal preference. Okay. And the reason that sometimes I do them separately is because if they're together, if I only have one thing to say in here, and you know, or I've got lots to say down here, and one part's really big and one part's really skinny, then I don't know. Just for me, the optics of it doesn't look nice to me. Okay.
Yeah, it
So
looks funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's just go back to that sheet for a sec. So we're going to talk about blooms. We'll do that right now, and then lesson plan templates. So remember on your template, it is just that. When you're going to go ahead and use it and say, okay, now Brad wants us to plan this lesson by ourselves, you need to go file, make a copy, and then call that, you know, small creatures and insects, you know, whatever, lesson plan or something like that. Okay. So our template is that. Our template remains blank all the time, right? Think of it this way. If you printed this out and then go, okay, well, I need a lesson plan for tomorrow's lesson. You take that piece of paper. I don't have a piece of paper near me. You take that piece of paper, you'd go over to the photocopier and go and make a copy, right? So it's no different, because you don't write on your templates. So we go file, again, make a copy, and then you can plan your own lesson on that. Okay. All right. Let's do blooms first. So let's do some notes. Bloom's taxonomy is really super duper important to know about, and I'll even give you a personal example. way back when there's still dinosaurs, and I graduated from my Bachelor of Education program, Edmonton Public Schools, one of the main questions on their interview process was about Bloom's taxonomy. And if you couldn't answer it the way that they wanted it and explain Bloom's taxonomy to them, you didn't get the job. So it's important to know, because again, it's integrated, just like Hunter stuff, it's integrated throughout all of our teaching, right? And and Bloom's helps us go from, asking simple questions with students to asking more complex questions. So you want to take them from sort of simplicity to a level of complexity, again, based on their age and all of that jazz. Okay, so if we, in our notebooks here, let me just get my little pen and pencil thing going on here. Let's just start thinking about Bloom's. All right, question. Let's use the little poll feature. I don't ever use that very much. Let's do that. Oops, polls. Start a poll. Okay. So yes or no question. You can see the question on there because obviously, oh no, you can't actually. You're on a different screen. So I'm going to put a question that says, do you know all 6 steps of Bloom's taxonomy? Yes or no? Okay, I'm just going to go save, launch, and we'll show the results to everybody. So just answer yes or no. Again, it's anonymous and it's not a big deal. Even if your name came up, it's not a big deal. If you don't know, that's what I'm here for, right? No, I'm just seeing how many Ed 250 grads might know about these, really, basically. If you haven't taken Ed 250, you probably don't know. So most people are no's. Okay, perfect. All right, nice. And so when we use a poll like this too, if how many people are in this meeting? 25, 20, about 26 of us. If 26 people would have said, yeah, I know all 6 steps of Bloom's, then as a teacher, don't waste your time on that, right? Don't waste your time on that, teaching them the 6 steps if they already know it, because you've got other things that they're not going to know, and you're going to need to teach them. So having a little poll like this is kind of a neat idea. Kayla, you had your hand up or a question. Where are you? Are you okay? All right, just a comment. Okay. I didn't see the poll. Down here on my screen, I'm not sure where for a student it pops up, but on the side here, it should pop up in your side panel. Correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody, is that correct?
It's the bottom right. Do you see the 3 shapes?
Yeah, right down here in the bottom is a triangle, square, and circle.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Phoenix, explain to Kayla what you got to do.
Oh, I mean, just press it and then the poll shows up.
And that's it. Okay, perfect. There you go. Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, so Bloom's taxonomy. Most of you don't know about it, so let's learn. Okay, I'm gonna do it now. If you were to Google or search whatever search engine your preference is, search Bloom's taxonomy right now, and then did an image search. And let's actually I'll just do that for 1 second here. I'm just gonna show you. Right here, let's just talk to the thing. Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, and we did images. As you can see just on that screen, it is represented, in a pictorially, you know what I mean, through pictures in lots of different ways. Circles, triangles. There's a balloon. There's kind of like steps. There's an inverted triangle. There's a chart. Again, more steps. There's a tree with leaves. Looking for the butterfly and the orange. There's all kinds of different ones. There's the orange right there. So it can be represented in loads of ways is kind of the moral of my story there. We're going to represent it as a triangle. Okay. So on or in your notes, create yourself. Why is that not working? There we go. Create yourself a fairly large triangle. Okay. And now you're going to need, I'm just going to draw a line here, but just to make sure that you're going to need area, you're going to be able to need an area to write 6 words down. Okay. So the first one is step of Bloom's taxonomy is just remembering. Okay. Is Bloom's taxonomy. We're going to have a top level, and that's called creating. Okay. And so on there, that's going to be our official top level based on Bloom's new taxonomy. And by the way, Benjamin Bloom, original taxonomy came out in 1956. Okay. It was revised in 2001 by Bloom's doctoral student. Her name is Laurie Anderson. Okay. And she teamed up or partnered up with another guy named, his last name is Crothwall. Okay. So Anderson and Crothwall in 2001 gave us what we're going to have here as our revised version of Bloom's taxonomy. So, 50 years later-ish, Bloom's taxonomy had stood the test of time. It did need, in 2001, you think with the age of technology and everything, it did need a like an update. And so, 50, 60 years later, this is just like hunters, back from the 70s, that's almost, well, it's, I think 50 years-ish, right? These methodologies and these ideas have held the test of time. Okay. All right. The next step up, or let's work our way down. The next one is evaluation or evaluating. Okay. And if we sec here, can I do it this way? Am I going to have too many? Oh, I'm going to have too many. Nuts. That's okay. All right. Evaluating. And then I'm going to work my way from the bottom again. We have got understanding. And then there's two A ones in the middle. Okay. I'm just going to use my little handy dandy, oopsie, my handy dandy eraser here. There we go. And this middle section is going to be really, really big. Yeah. But that's not it. Well, that's, I don't want to do that either. It's not, there's no reason for it to be bigger than the other sections. It's just the way I drew it. Okay. So we've got two, and this is where students will get mixed up. We've got two here in the middle that start with A, right? And one is applying and one is analyzing. Okay. The way that I remember the order is that it's not alphabetical. The P is going to come before the N. So this is applying, and this is analyzing. Okay, and we're going to draw. I'm going to draw a colored line. I guess I'll just choose red, and we're going to put that colored line right here. Okay, and that line is sort of separates Bloom's taxonomy into two pieces of thinking. Okay, so the bottom portion, I'll just go back to my white crayon there. This bottom section is what we refer to as lower order thinking skills. Okay, we can fondly refer to it from now on as, and I'll write this, I will write this in a different color here. I'll go blue. Actually, I'll go yellow. We can refer to this section as LOTS, L-O-T-S, lower order thinking skills. So the bottom three are lower order thinking skills. So remember I said earlier, we want to take them from simple to complex. So remembering is very, very simple, right? I could ask anybody a question about any K-12 curriculum, and I'm sure most of you will be able to just go and recall it very easily. Okay, same with the understanding and applying. Lower levels, although when we get into this middle area where the A's are, there's some, we can move those around a little bit. Okay, so then if the bottom ones are lower order thinking skills, anybody want to go out on a limb and say, what do you think the top three are going to be? Nobody's brave enough to say.
The higher order thinking skills.
Nice work. Okay, so yes, so these are, and I'm writing on a really weird angle here, but higher order thinking skills. And of course, the acronym that we're going to use for that is HOTS. Okay. So when we move students into the hot zone, we're making their brains engage a lot more. Okay. But we have to bear in mind is that we don't go from 0 to 60 in 1 second. Okay. We start, you don't get kids up to the creating and evaluating level unless you've worked your way up that pyramid, right? There's got to be that remembering, that understanding. You need to know how to apply that new information, and then we go from there, right? So then we move up the pyramid or the steps or whatever metaphor you want to use for it, and there. Now, these are the official 6 steps. I'm going to add a new one that came out in the 2000s here. I can't remember exact year. I can never remember the year of that. But the new level, the newest level, and that is above creating. So we're at the, I don't know, I guess we got a new level there. And I'll write it in, I don't know, I'll write it in green. Okay. The newest level, let's see. Oh, nuts. Hold on here for a sec. There we go. Is sharing. Okay, and it's not maybe that easy to see on my notes there, but the new level is sharing. Okay, and if you think about it, in this day and age, there is absolutely no reason that you or your kids can't share their work with their parents or guardians or whoever on a daily basis, right? As a matter of fact, I would encourage you to have, whether it be Instagram or Facebook, or pick your social media platform of choice, that you have one of those types of accounts that is just your teacher Instagram account. I'll use Instagram as an example. And then the only people that have access to that are parents in your class. And every day, we all have one of these. We take, our pictures, and you put them in your Instagram account to show parents what kids are doing every day. So there's no reason that we can't share. And if we take that sharing to maybe a higher level, think of older students, or, let's say older. I mean, we could think of high school kids, but really honestly, from probably grade 3 and up, there would be no reason that if the kids were writing a research report, they couldn't reach out to an astronaut, on the space station. I'll go, we'll aim high here, and ask them a question and share what they're writing about outer space, and collaborate with an expert, right? So that sharing takes lots of forms. I mean, it could be as simple as sharing it with your with the relatives of the kids in your class, or sharing it with the world, right? And we've got the technology now that is not a problem to be able to do that. Okay, or on your website, if you build a class website or something, you could share student work there as well. Okay, now on your notes, just add a little. I'll look it up here, and then I'll make sure I refer to the date next time. But on here, just write sharing, and then just as a note to yourself, write down the date. I'm gonna have to look it up. I don't know why I can't remember it right now. Okay, and that was in the mid to late 2000s so far, so up to where we're at. I think it was 2017 or 18, but don't quote me on that. I'll get the date, and then I'll give you the correct date. Okay, so 1956 original blooms, new updated blooms 2001 by Anderson and Crothwall, and then a suggestion or idea of adding sharing as the new top level, based on technology that we have today and we could use in the classroom for teaching and learning. Okay, all right. Now, this pyramid represents, so I'm just going to make a new page here. So in your notes, write this down. Bloom's has 3 domains. Okay. And those domains are like this, and in no particular order. Let's go alphabetical order. It doesn't matter. The first domain is affective. Okay. And that's really dealing with, you know, kind of emotions and things like that. Okay. So if you're teaching a health class or maybe a drama class or a comm class, what you're delivering in your lesson plan might come from the affective domain. Okay. Number 2 is cognitive domain. Right. And however you want to draw it, I'm a horrible artist, but we're going to draw a brain, you know, what a brain. I don't know, like that. Oh, you know what? Here, I'll do some. I know I know I'm an artist. I know I should be an art teacher, right? There, here, I'll draw arrows to your head, to a person's head. There you go. Right. Cognitive, dealing with the brain. Kim, don't laugh at me. All right. All right. And then the third one is psychomotor, not psychopathic, psychomotor. Okay. And of course, that is, you know, I don't know, I'll draw a hand. Okay, pretty good hand. I know, should have been an art teacher. So psychomotor being like physical stuff, like kinesthetic things. You know, kids are moving, they're using manipulatives, they're doing something. Okay. The one that we almost use on a daily basis for sure is the cognitive domain. Okay. So, and our pyramid, and let me just go back one page here. Our pyramid, this pyramid that we just drew, is based on the cognitive domain. Okay. So, okay. So then how do we use this in teaching? Well, let me show you. First of all, in Google Classroom, there is a Bloom's Taxonomy HyperDoc that you're going to need to do next day. Now, HyperDoc, I just want you to do it. It's really going to be basically like your introduction to HyperDocs, because we're going to do HyperDocs after we finish our lesson plans, because HyperDoc, or using a HyperDoc, is another way to deliver curriculum. Okay. And it works, I think it works particularly good in an online environment. You can definitely use it in a face-to-face environment, but I think its biggest strengths, HyperDoc's biggest strengths, are in online delivery. Okay, but it works for both. So there is a Bloom's Taxonomy HyperDoc. I'll just show you what it looks like here. And so it looks like this. Now you are all going to, when I say this is your introduction to HyperDocs, you're all going to be making one of these as well. Again, based on an age, grade, group, topic, all that jazz that you want to teach. But, and again, this is a version that I was able to put together that satisfied sort of what I wanted, what I thought wasn't too long or it wasn't rigorous enough, right? So I think that, so yeah, just like my lesson plan template, this is a cobbling together of what I think of all the different kinds of HyperDocs that I've looked at, and there's loads of different kinds. This one works the best, I think. Okay, there's one other one that I really like for well, for younger kids, but and we'll look at that when we do HyperDocs. Anyways, here's what you have to do. You basically just need to go through this. So there's either read, watch, or kind of do things to do here. Everywhere you see the little glasses is a watch, okay, like a video or whatever. And wherever you see the books, that's something to look at. Now these are not like 40-page articles. When I click on Bloom's in 3D, it's just a little bit of reading. There's not a ton of reading there. It's mostly just pictures or charts or whatever. So so this whole section, if you read it, should take you around 10 minutes. Okay. And that's important to add on a HyperDoc just so that students know how much time they have to invest. And I'll mention this again when we do HyperDocs, that if you have a 50-minute class, we'll just use 50 as an example, your HyperDoc, because you're going to HyperDocs go home with students. Okay. You can also use them in class, but again, they're usually for students to work on their own at home. Your HyperDoc should not be longer than the class that you would teach. So if you got a 50-minute class, it shouldn't take your kids more than 50 minutes to accomplish or complete your hyperdoc. Okay, that just wouldn't be fair to send a hyperdoc to take 3 hours to do at home when you only had 50 minutes to do it in class, right? So anyways, here's a hyperdoc. Here's what it looks like. You're going to go through it. You're going to complete it. The show what you know part, don't worry about that quite yet because we're going to do that all together. But you definitely can do the discover, the learn, and the self-assessment. This is a type of assignment where there's nothing to hand in. So if you go back to Google Classroom, and I'll just make this bigger so we can all see it, right? I wrote here specifically, and I'll read it to you because you might not be able to read it. There's nothing to hand in here. Please complete this hyperdoc and then mark it as done. We're going on the honor system. So if you mark it as done using your integrity and your morals, your ethics, your honor, you're telling me that you've done the read, you've watched the videos that I've asked you to do, you've done the things that I've asked you to do on the hyperdoc. When you mark it as done, I will take you on your word, and I will then award you the marks. Okay. There are ways that I could force you to do this. It's up to you. All of the things in the hyperdoc or any other hyperdocs that I'm going to give you, all of those links and videos and all that jazz, that's all testable material too. So if for no other reason, you should probably go through this stuff to make sure that you're prepared for tests and quizzes and all that jazz. But that's not the only reason you should be doing it. You should be doing it so you can learn about Bloom's taxonomy and all of that kind of stuff because you're going to need it in your teaching. Okay. All right. So there will be a Bloom's hyperdoc for you to go through, but there's some other things that we need to talk about. So we know that there are 3 domains: affective, cognitive, psychomotor. Okay. Again, we predominantly work in cognitive, and often we are at the create level. We're at the create level right here. Okay. Because if you think about what we're doing as teachers is we're giving instruction, and then after that instruction, we expect a product from our students, whether it be finished math questions, whether it be a paragraph or an essay, or you want them to draw a picture. In the end, they're pretty much creating, right? So that's the ultimate level, and that's where we get to as teachers very, very often. Okay. So again, we usually stick in the cognitive domain, and we're working our way up to the create level. Okay. So when we in our Hunter lesson plan, when it gets to the independent practice stage, that's where we're at. We're basically at the create level as well. Okay. So in your in Google Classroom, again, there are Bloom's readings and resources here. And I'm just going to show you this. There's some stuff in here to read. If you go through the hyperdoc, you're going to cover almost all of this stuff anyways. But there is a folder here that I've called most important. Okay, let me make that a little bit bigger. Right, I've made this folder called most important because if you open that folder up, it has the Bloom's taxonomy words for the affective, cognitive, and psychomotor domain. So when we look at cognitive, I'm just going to open this up and just show you here. Okay, when we open up the cognitive one, and I'll make this document bigger too, okay, these are verbs that we use to measure outcomes, okay? And what we mean by that is when we look at a curriculum document and it says students will be able to demonstrate a knowledge of the safe handling of science beakers, right? Well, if that is one of our outcomes, then if we say that students are going to be able to demonstrate the effective and safe use of, glass beakers in the science lab, if you look at the words that are on my screen, what level of Bloom's does that come under?
Applying.
Yeah, right here, right? Under demonstrating. And you'll see these words or words like them. Now, first of all, let me back up for 1 second or pause for 1 second. This is not the exhaustive list. If you look again, if you Googled or searched Bloom's taxonomy verbs, there are hundreds and thousands of verbs. Just think the English language has a lot of verbs, right? But this is a great place to start. And then again, if you look at curriculum in the programs of study, and it's telling you the outcomes of what kids should be able to do by the end of the wheels and levers unit, you'll see words that are very similar to what you see on the screen right now. Okay, and these are the words you're going to use. You can use these in your objectives. You can use these in your outcomes. Now, the outcomes are easy because you just copy and paste those directly from the Alberta Ed website. But when you're doing your objectives and you're going, well, one of my objectives of the lesson is that students will work in partners, and again, we can use a different word, and they will, let's say here, they will differentiate the difference between acids and bases. So that could be a potential outcome. Or students will employ, safe lab practices, while doing experiments. So there's lots of these words that we can use that are interchangeable between outcomes and objectives. And you're gonna find them under Bloom's Readings and Resources. You go to Student Readings, and then you'll see this Most Important folder. That's where you're gonna find that stuff, okay? And again, we are predominantly going to stick in the cognitive domain level. Now, let me just see in my notes here, did I mention all the goodies that I want to talk about? I think so. Yep, I'm pretty sure I did. Okay, all right, so let's go back to our lesson plan template then. Okay, so if we go here, and we'll just ignore the top stuff for now. And if we go down to segment 1, and you don't have to do this, I'm just going to do this, is that students will recall the steps of I use this sentence. What is the verb in that? This is like an English class, sorry. What is the verb in that sentence? The action word.
Recall.
Yeah, whoever said that, thank you. Yes, recall. Okay. Now, if we go back to Bloom's here, right, you can see that recall is right there. So on your lesson plan then, when you do this, on your lesson plan, you would go right, wrong lesson plan. You'd go right here under your Bloom's level. I'll just hit an enter so it's on the same kind of line. And all you're going to do is you're going to go C1. Because if we go back here, that is under cognitive and the first step. Okay, just a way for us to easily recall it. Okay, and then everybody who uses Bloom's taxonomy knows when you talk about C1, it's cognitive. If you're talking about, here's my arrow. Here, there we go. If we're talking about A5, then you know that person's grabbing those from the affective domain. Okay, so that's all you have to do on your lesson plans when you're planning is you're going to go, okay, students will recall the steps of scientific method. If I'm going to do that in my lesson, that is a recall. Simple, right? By the time maybe we get to chunk number 2 or chunk number 3, again, depending on what kind of class you're teaching, you might have different words, and you might say here, students will design whatever it is you want them to design or formulate something, right? So again, depending on the nature of your lesson, you will see different levels. Now, here's what anybody who is going to evaluate you is going to look for, okay? Is that you have different levels of Bloom's in a lesson plan or in a series of lesson plans, because you can't always be at the C1 or the lowest level, because kids aren't going to reach that higher level and make their brains really work, right? So, because here's an example. If we're going to use recall, I could say students will recall the capitals of each province in Canada. Simple, right? I could ask you those right now. All of you would be able to give me those answers, right? But so if I said to you, and I'll just pick on somebody, Selena, this is really easy. What is the capital city of Alberta?
Edmonton.
Thank you. Well done. But if we're face to face, I'd give you a gold star right now. But let me take you to a higher level of Bloom's taxonomy. Okay. Now we could go up to, I'm probably going to go to C5 on this one. So let's say I could use the word argue. I could use that one. I could use the word justify. This is for my question I've got in my head. Okay. Or support. Okay. And here's the question that I'm going to ask. Who am I going to ask? Let me pick on somebody that I haven't picked on yet. Emma, can I pick on you?
Of course.
All right. All right. Here's a higher level Bloom's question. So from Selena told us Edmonton's a capital, right? But here is the question that you're going to answer in segment 2 of my lesson. Back in when Alberta joined the Confederation in 1905, there was debate on what city should be the capital city, whether it should be Calgary or it should be Edmonton. Well, we all know it's Edmonton, but here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to take a stance, whether you're an Edmonton fan or a Calgary fan, and I want you to evaluate, judge, justify, you pick your word, support an argument for one city or the other. So if you're an Edmonton fan and you think Edmonton should have been and rightly chosen as the capital of our province, then I want you to support an argument for that. Or vice versa. If you think that Calgary got ripped off and Calgary should have been the capital city of Alberta, I'd like you to, again, to argue or to support an argument around that. And then if that was the activity on our lesson plan, and that was in my, let's see, that was in my segment 2 down here, I'd go C5. Okay. Does that make a little bit of sense? A little bit. Again, when we do our lesson plan together and stuff, and we will have some time to do that here in a minute, well, at least to start it, then that's what I'll expect from you to see in each of your blocks. And that would include your anticipatory set and your closure. What level of Bloom's taxonomy are you at in those areas of your lesson as well? Okay. All right. Let me just take that scientific method out of there. All right. So okay, here's what we're going to do. Because we have our template looking pretty and ready, good to go, I'd like everybody, I'm just going to close a whole bunch of tabs here. We'll leave that tab open. What do we got there? We don't need that. We don't need that. But we do need, I'll close that too. We do need our lesson plan template. So first thing, like I said earlier, we're going to make a copy. Okay, because we don't write in our template. So you don't have to follow Bloom's order, right? You can pick them based on what you want to cover. Yeah, 100%, right? But here's a scenario for you then, is if this was lesson 1 on, I don't know, let's say we'll pick scientific method again, right? And I was evaluating you, I would probably expect to see a lot of C1s and maybe C2s in there. And maybe down towards the end here, maybe a create, something under create, but it might be something very simple, is that students will create their own Bloom's taxonomy pyramid, with colors and whatever appropriate, blah, 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 right? So you could have C1s and 2s all the way up to C6s in any lesson. But again, it depends where you're at. Now, when you do your own lesson plans, you can hop in at any point you want in that topic. So if you're doing rocks and minerals, your lesson plan does not have to be lesson plan 1. It could be lesson plan 12 if you want, right? Where students are doing whatever with rocks and minerals, okay? So then again, depending on where you are in that series of lessons, remember, you've got lesson plan 1 all the way up to lesson plan potentially 40. So you can figure out where you want to be in that progression and then use the appropriate verbs and that kind of stuff, okay? Does that make sense to your question? Good. Okay. All right. Okay. So here's what we need to do. Is first thing we need to do, and if you want to bookmark it, you can. And I'll send you the bookmark right now. I've got it bookmarked. You should probably in your bookmarks add the Alberta Education website because you're going to spend the rest of your life looking at these documents. Okay. There's the link if you want to grab it that way. And then as you're on this page here with the red and the blue, just scroll down and you'll see here right in the middle, programs of study. Okay. And we'll click that. And we'll scooch down a little bit more. And you'll see that there's 3 links here. Do I still have this big. There we go. We have 3 links here. One for tools for parents, tools for teachers, and the programs of study. Okay. Tools for parents is okay, but really it is designed for parents. So it has on a scale of 1 to 10, it's on 10 being it's super duper useful for teachers, and 1 it's not that useful for teachers. It's probably about a 2. Okay. If you were walking into a brand new subject, you've never taught it, actually taking a look at the tools for parents actually might give you a bit of an idea of, if nothing else, how your year plan should look. Okay. Or be divided out. So it's helpful there. Tools for teachers, if you click it, it just takes you down to the programs of study. Okay, basically. There's a site called Learn Alberta, but that is for more like for 3rd year. At the kind of lesson plans I'm asking you to do, you're not going to need to get into that kind of depth. But then if we just keep scrolling down a little bit, there are all the programs of study. That is the curriculum. Okay, and it's everything from Aboriginal studies all the way down alphabetically, all the way down to special projects. So we got social studies, we've got science, we've got math. And here's the deal on this. All of these are slightly different. I know, just to make it more frustrating and confusing for beginning users, no 2 of these are really the same. So the science ones look way different than the English language arts ones. They look way different than the math ones. Art, math, English, social, math, art, drama, phys ed. Those are all harder ones to find what you need. Okay, but once you know how, easy peasy. Okay, so we're going to start off with science, because science I think is the easiest one to pick your outcomes from. Okay, let's do K-6 science. And again, we're going to do a sample lesson plan. So this is just for our purposes. And then you're going to do a lesson plan that you want. And if you want to teach science and K-6 science isn't your jam, then you can just pick one of the other curriculums. We'll just do K-6. Okay. And we'll do grade 6. How's that sound? I'm just going to arbitrarily choose here for us. Okay. When you get to this page, there's lots of gobbledygook on here. Okay. So what you want to find is the little header that says programs of study. And then down here, there is the science 1 to 6. What you will also notice is that there is a program, or the curriculum for kindergarten is called a program statement. Okay, so it is slightly different than the rest of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, but let's go 1 to 6. So we'll click on that. When you click on that, it will open up a PDF, and whatever your PDF browser, what a thing does, you can open that up. And where you're headed is to this document. Okay. Now, this document is 38 pages long. And when you're in 3rd and 4th year, you can remember, or you can look at and commit to your memory all of this stuff at the beginning that I call just the preamble kind of junky stuff, right? Once you get into 3rd and 4th year or into your own classroom, some of this stuff is important to read and to know. For our purposes, we're not going to worry about that. The other thing that I'd like to just to point out to you is that at the bottom of each page, it tells you the page number, and it tells you the last year that curriculum was revised. And if you look at this, that's kind of scary. And this is not even the oldest curriculum that's out there that has not been revised. If I'm not mistaken, the art curriculum has not been revised since the 80s. So that's a long time ago, right? But it is a curriculum that you've got. It is a curriculum that the government or governments of Alberta, over a span of time, have approved and said, yep, this is what kids should know. And then therefore, based on the School Act and all that other good stuff that keeps us on the straight and narrow as teachers, we need to cover this curriculum. Okay. Now there is new curriculum out, but until that point that it actually comes out, or if the UCP end up in power over after the next election, then we'll see some new curriculum come out. In the meantime, we use what we've got. And of course, like any other thing in politics, if government changes in the next election, there's going to be another revision to curriculum, because the NDP lost, obviously, to the UCP. The NDP had curriculum all ready to go for K-12. And then the UCP won the election. It's a little bit of a history lesson here. And they said, nah, we don't really like what you guys have got. We're making our own. Every government does that. Okay. It is the provincial purview that provinces control their own curriculum. We have no national curriculum like they have in the United States. So every province has their own curriculum. And there are lots of similarities, but there are also lots of differences, right? Here we talk about the history of Alberta. Well, if you're in Newfoundland, you're going to learn about the history of Newfoundland, that kind of idea. Okay, so page numbers at the bottom of the page here in the footer, and also the year. So if we keep scooching on down, what it's going to show you is all the different topics. Okay, so if you want to teach grade 1, there you go. Creating color, seasonal changes, building things, the senses, and the needs of animals and plants. Okay. If you scooch on down here to grade 6, where we're at least currently, we've got air and aerodynamics, flight, sky science, evidence and investigation, and trees and forests. Okay. I have taught most of these curriculums, and they're all, I think, all have their really high points, and some of them they have their boring points as well. And some of this is like, oh, I gotta teach that, or I forgot about that, right? But I picked grade 6 because I loved teaching grade 6, and I thought the science curriculum was amazing. I love it all the way from trees and forests, which may not be everybody's jam, sky science, I love, and all the rest of it, I love it as well. Let's do before we make a choice here, you can see that each one of these science topics in each grade, there's 5 topics. Okay. Again, if you're going to do the math and think about year plans, 5 topics, 10 months. How much time do I have roughly for each topic? The answer is 2 months, right? And in 2 months, we're going to boil it down even more. You can boil it down. And this you'll do in 3rd and 4th year. You'll boil it down to, okay, well, if I have 2 months, how many school days is that? Well, roughly 40, if we don't have any funny Mondays and Fridays, right? Roughly 40 school days. That could potentially be 40 lessons, right? And then you got to break it down that way. And so we end up having, potentially 40 lessons in a unit plan. We are doing 1 lesson plan. And like I said earlier, you can jump in wherever you want. If you're going to go trees and forests, let's say if you're going to do a grade 6 is your jam, you choose trees and forests, pick one thing from the outcomes and make a lesson about that. Okay. So Kim, because you're always got your camera on and you're always participating, pick a topic A, B, C, D, or E under grade 6 science. Doesn't matter to me. Oh, I can't hear you.
C.
Okay, one of my personal favorites. Okay, science, sky science. So now we're gonna let's all scooch on down here. So in the science curriculum, it's divided by grading, or by grades. So we have to scroll down to get to grade 6. We got to go. Just keep scrolling. Okay. Every once in a while, stop and go. What grade am I on now? I am on Wasting Our World. That is grade 4, if I'm not mistaken. There's grade 5, and there's grade 6. That's on page 33. Okay. Now, in our notes, in curriculum, you will find general learner, expectations. As you can see right here, there's general learner expectations. And then on that, I would like you can either do a slashy here, or I'm just going to put mine underneath, because again, just to confuse you even more, some curriculum says expectations and some curriculum says outcomes. They mean the same thing. Why they do that, I'm not entirely sure, but different curriculum says some say expectations and some say outcomes. both the same thing. Okay. Now, the other thing that you're going to see in curriculum, and I'll just scroll down here a little bit more, is specific learner expectations. Okay. So let's write that down. Specific learner expectations. Okay. And again, you can use also the word outcomes here. Okay. Now, for our lesson plans, we don't need to use general learner expectations. Okay. So you don't have to do that. I just did this on my notes. I just put an X through that, because if you give me a general learner expectation or outcome, you'll lose marks for that. Okay. I only want the specific learner expectations because they really drill down to the nitty-gritty of day-to-day teaching. General learner expectations or outcomes are excellent, but they're excellent for unit plans. Okay. So great to use in a unit plan or a bigger picture plan, maybe even a year plan. But when we drill down to, like I said, the day-to-day teaching, we want to be more specific. Okay. All right. We're actually just going to scooch on by those again. Now, Kim chose topic C, which is sky science. So we're going to keep on scrolling down until we see sky science right here. Okay. Now, I'm just going to make this page a little bit smaller so you can see what I'm going to talk about here. Okay. One more smaller. There we go. So one of the things that they do in this PDF document is that you can see that sky science comes down here, the left column, and then you got to go back up to the next column and come down. So we're not going down to the next page. There are columns. So it's just like in a newspaper, we're going to start off over here. We're going to read all of this stuff, and then we're going to transition ourselves up to these outcomes here. Okay. So those are the outcomes that we're going to look at. And like I said, you can choose any outcome you want in your own personal lesson for whatever grade and topic and subject you're teaching. Okay. So one other thing to notice is that each one of these units has an overview. These overviews are excellent for you to read, obviously, and important for you to read, but they're also great to copy and paste right into your unit plan, because you're going to go in your unit plan, at least the way that I unit plan, there is a big section that says, overview of the lesson or whatever you want to call it. There it is. Why reinvent the wheel when Alberta Education has it for you right there, right? You highlight it, copy it, paste it into your unit plan when you get to that level. Okay. For now, like I said, all we are doing is grabbing these outcomes. So now, the first, I'm not going to read all these to you, right? The first one says recognize. Now, if we go back to Bloom's taxonomy, recognize is right here. It is a C2, right? So I told you that in these curriculum documents, they use Bloom's verbs, right? And if you look at all of these words, right? Describe, recognize, understand, construct. Construct is a C6. Okay, so that's your outcome, that your lesson is sort of like at that, or that part of your lesson is at that level. Describe, recognize, illustrate, recognize, identify, and understand. Marissa, go for it.
It also said construct in C3 as well. So could that also be?
Yep. It just depends on what you're having the kids do, but absolutely, yeah, you could for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We could pick any one of these. Let's do number 7. That is, recognize the moon's phases are regular, predictable, and and then be able to describe the cycle in whatever phase it's in. Okay. So I don't know about you, last night, if you were outside late, like I was walking the dog, that moon last night was so bright. It was almost hard to look at because it was so bright. It's pretty amazing. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight that. We're going to copy it. And then I don't think oh man, hold on here. Where'd my lesson plan go? There you go. Now, again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy. I'm going to call this phases of the moon lesson plan. Not a lesson plan template anymore. It's just a seasons of the moon lesson plan. Okay. And if you want, again, remember, I'm just going to throw this. I'm just going to go day, I don't know, 10. Okay. Just so that I know. Okay. And again, where you save it and all that jazz is up to you. I'm just going to say, okay. So again, my topic is, we're going to put in here, let me make this bigger for you. Our topic is going to be sky science. The date is going to be like my lesson plan that I named it, day 10. The subject is phases of the moon. Okay. Under outcomes here, I'm just going to give myself a little bullet point there. I'm going to go back to the program of study. Yeah, I did copy this already. Okay. I'm going to go back to my lesson plan and I am going to paste it. Now, I'll show you a little trick. We can paste it like that and see how it comes in big and ugly and messy. That's just a command or a control V on my keyboard. What you can do if you go down command or control and hold down shift as well at the same time and then go V, it'll paste it in based on the formatting that you've already got. So that's command or control shift at the same time and then V. And if you look up here, it shows you here paste without formatting. So it gets rid of the formatting that was on your PDF and it just pastes it so that it's the same format as your whatever document you're pasting it into. So again, it's command or control shift at the same time and then the letter V. Okay. All right. So that is, and you're only going to need one outcome. Now, with that said, there will be some exceptions. If you're teaching an older grade, I'll give it this way. The maximum amount of outcomes that I'll allow you to have in a lesson plan will be 2. Okay. Because otherwise someone's going to look at your lesson plan and go, are you really sure, Emran, that you can complete 3 outcomes in one 40-minute lesson? Right? I mean, that's like making me think, I don't think you can do it. Right? That's a lot of outcomes to do in one lesson. All right. We're out of time again. I can't believe how fast time goes. Maybe you guys are bored to death and it just felt like 3 hours. But so here's what I'd like you to do for next day. Okay. Is if we go to Google Classroom, okay, we are in week 3, kind of bordering on 4 here. I want you to make sure that you check out the lesson planning and resources in that folder. Okay. Make sure that you're going to get in your brain lesson plan template, and then you submit that into me. By Thursday. You've already made a copy of your template, so that's okay. You can submit your master copy into this assignment. And with the checklist, don't forget you need to do the completed checklist as well. So there's 2 things that should be submitted: your lesson plan and the checklist. Somehow you've marked it up, okay, to show me what you've completed. Okay, and so you need to do that. I'd like you also to check out the HyperDoc, and there's just some stuff there to do. Shouldn't take you that long, maybe half an hour maximum, right? And then there are Bloom's readings and resources. So yeah, between the HyperDoc and these readings, you'll cover everything that you should, I think, understand or know about Bloom's taxonomy. And then next day we'll finish this lesson plan together, and then we'll have whatever time is left off, because there'll be no notes next time. We'll just finish off the lesson plan template that we're working on now, the Sky Science one, and then the rest of the time will be for you to work on or start your own lesson plans on your own. Okay. Now, with that said, thank you very much for a great class. We'll catch you on Thursday. If you've got questions, comments, or anything you want to talk about, stick around. If you're done with me, see you later and have a great day.